Hello everyone, my name is Pete Mobilia and today I'm going to show you how to use Metasploit on my Kali machine to gain access in the virtual machine Metasploitable 2. The main goal is to be able to create a shell in another machine on the network to be able to control this machine through the terminal, and I'll be showing you how to do that shortly. It's worth noting that what we're about to do is illegal unless you have strict permission to do so, so keep that in mind when performing any of these tasks. It's also important to mention that Metasploitable 2 is an extremely vulnerable machine, and in saying that, I've put it on a host-only network so it cannot connect to the internet, just because it is extremely vulnerable and it's a smart thing to do. First off, we need to see what what network we're on. I can show you this, that we're on, this is the IP of the network that I'm using. And what we can do now is use nmap, sudo nmap, to scan that IP address and to have a look at what other machines are on the network. We can use the SV flag, that stands for service version, and this will bring up all service information for all the machines on the network, what version the machine's running, and all that sort of business. What we can do in the meantime is go into this terminal and fire up our MSF console, which is how we'll use our exploits. And while that's just waiting, we need to find an exploit, and I've done that before this video. I've found this exploit that we're going to use on CVE. It's this one here, VSFTPD234. And what this does is it creates a backdoor which opens up a shell on port 6200. Initially, what it does is it uses port 21, which is the FTP, the TCP port for FTP, to create this backdoor. There's some more information here that we'll quickly run through. This one here, sorry. And it basically tells us here, it triggers malicious a reaction by sending a sequence of bytes on port 21. Once that's successful, it results in opening a backdoor on port 6200, and that allows us to create a shell and basically gives us root access to the machine. There's a whole lot of information here. I can put the links in the description, but without delaying any further, let's get started. So as you saw earlier, we're using this vulnerability here, the VSFTPD backdoor vulnerability. What we can do is copy that, and in Metasploit we can search and paste that, and that should come up on our system, and it does there. Another thing that we can do is type info and then its reference number here, number 0, and it'll give us a whole lot of information based on this exploit and how it works. It uses the default payload that is not 100% sure what that payload is, but you'll see in a moment. If I go use, it defaults to this CMD Unix interact payload, which is perfect. In the meantime, our scan on nmappers has finished, and it shows us that yes, indeed, port 21 for FTP is open, and this is the one of the exploits that we're using that it's vulnerable to. Also, it shows us all these other ports, and we know that this is Metasploitable because it shows our service version information down here, and this is the IP address for that machine, which makes everything so much easier. This scan also shows all the other devices on the network, but at this point we're only only interested in this one. So now we have all that information. Once we have set this exploit, the first thing is to type options, and this will bring up all of the information required to perform this exploit. First thing we need to do is set the R host, and this is the target machine, the machine that we intend to gain access to. To do that, we can type set R hosts, and we put in this number here, which is the IP address for that machine, 192.168.56.101. We also need to set our L hosts, which is the listening device, and that is 192.168.56.102, which is what we originally scanned here. Now that that's all done, we can just simply type exploit, and now it's performing the exploit. So as we mentioned earlier, it's sending bytes on port 21, which gives us root access, and opens a backdoor on port 6200. It's important to note that this isn't a reverse shell attack. It essentially gives us the same outcome. It gives us shell access to the target machine, but it's not a reverse shell. We can now perform a reverse shell attack now that we are connected to that machine, but on this case, we're not going to do that. Now that we're connected, I'll just quickly flip over to Metasploitable 2, and if we type ls, we can see all the directories in this MSF admin directory, and there's only that one there, vulnerable. Our aim is, for this task, is to create a directory on our Kali machine that we have gained access through. So in a moment, you'll see that another directory will pop up here, but we'll flip back over to Kali. We can type ls, and we can cd into home, change directory, ls again, cd into msf admin, ls again, and there we go. We can see that vulnerable directory there. So we know that we have access now. Now we can make directory. I'm going to name it testing for the purpose of this exercise. Press enter, type ls, and we can see that that testing directory is now shown up. Now, if we go back to Metasploitable, type ls, we can see that indeed that the testing directory has now shown up on the other machine using our access that we've gained through that shell on port 6200. Thank you for watching. I hope this has helped. Feel free to leave any comments in below.